Hello, I thought today I would do a little coffee chat about exactly how I became a freelance writer.
Writing?
I have been earning a living freelance writing online since 2016. I do know a thing or two about freelance writing and making money online and all that kind of buzzwordy stuff that you hear online.
I think this is some X-Files shit.
This video is really a total overview of all the steps I took to get where I am today. Let's get into the video. The first step that I think is pretty key to becoming a freelance writer is to write good.
It's called good writing.
You don't have to be, an English major and have a degree from university and have perfect, well, you need to have decent grammar, but I mean, you don't have to be like some kind of professor level English or whatever language you're writing in person. Personally, I never even went to university. I really believe in just writing content, especially for online content, the way we talk. So I just write the way I talk. And of course, I go back and edit my pieces, correct like actual grammar things. You don't need to be this like professional level person to start writing. And I think that's something that held me back for a while because I thought that I needed a special education in it or to have a big credential of some sort to get started. And you don't, especially nowadays. There's so much content online.
So much.
It's seen as an actual real job now. Yeah, you can just get started and just write the way you talk. That is step one. If you feel like your writing is somehow lacking, I would recommend just practicing. If you don't have any clients right now, of course, you can just do projects for yourself. You could join a writing workshop or class from like your local university. I've done a couple of those, not like a formal class, but they're like $30 and they're on a weekend day. One was about how to like weave emotions into your writing. I find those really helpful, like just classes, or of course there's like, this is not sponsored by, it's not going to go into some segue about it, but like Skillshare, I've learned a lot from that. And just YouTube, like watching YouTube videos about writing tips. So there's lots of places to learn those kind of little skills and practice until you actually have clients. And then of course, when you do have clients, you can continue practicing. Yeah, that's the first thing to work on is your actual writing skills. Okay, the second thing you need to be a freelance writer is samples of your work. So otherwise known as a portfolio. Always the first question that most people have is like, how do I get clients when I don't have any writing samples, when I don't have a portfolio, website, that sort of thing? Like basically it's the same in all jobs. How do you get hired if you don't have the experience already? And the standard answer for all of that is you make your own experience.
I consider experience.
In some jobs that looks like volunteering for things or doing, like internships. A lot of people think that unpaid work is, not fair. And I agree. I agree in many cases it's not. But sometimes when you want to break in somewhere, that is literally what you have to do. And that is just one of those hard truths. I don't think you necessarily always have to work for free. And I'm going to get into some other ideas in a second here, but you definitely do need samples. Your first priority should be creating those samples. I actually applied for jobs at marketing agencies. I saw a listing for entry-level copywriter kind of thing in an agency. So I applied. I just wrote fake stuff. I wrote a website homepage for like just a fake company I invented. I just wrote copy for it as if it were a real client. And I included that with my email application thing. And I was honest, but I didn't make it seem like a fake company. I was like, oh, look, I don't have any samples. Here's one I made showing what I can do. So obviously you don't want to lie about it. Like, don't be sleazy about it. Because really all the point of samples is just to prove that you can do the work. So I had my 2 or 3 samples, fake samples on my website.
Getting sample after sample. She had 10 samples.
And at that point I was still looking for jobs on job boards and really using like the employee mindset, I'll call it. I was applying for jobs, applying for freelance gigs, which nowadays I don't do at all. I haven't even made a resume in years and I never will. But at that point in my life, I was just treating it like how I'd always worked for jobs before. I'll get into how I got clients in the next step. Okay, so once I had my 2 or 3 samples on my website, I guess that's another, so that's, what are we on? I already forgot. Step 2? No, that was still step 1, was write good. Step 2 was have samples, right? Okay, 3, I guess we can make it a separate step. Step 3 is have a website. So I think nowadays especially, it's super important. You really need a website. Once I had my kind of couple samples written, I think I just used WordPress back in the day. Like I did get a custom domain, just pay the $12 or whatever it is and get a domain name. It was just like a super simple site. There's lots of tutorials about how to make websites and maybe I'll do a video on that another time, but just have a super simple website. I think the pages you need are like a services, what kind of writing you do. Pricing, I Some people say don't put it on the website, some do. Personally, I put my pricing on my website, or at least a starting at kind of figure, because I don't want to spend a lot of time on sales and calls and trying to convince people to hire me. I would rather just people know if I'm in their budget or not from the get-go, and then if I'm not, just to not reach out. I don't really have an interest in making these big sales processes where I try and convince people to hire me. So I just put my pricing starting at on the site, and people can kind of filter themselves out.
You'll see yourself out, won't you?
That's my opinion. I would do that. Other than that, I think like an about page, just, detailing any, from a professional standpoint, like almost like a little mini LinkedIn, right? Like just your background, the kind of things that you're passionate about writing about, and any experience, and then like a contact page. That's really it. There's like, what is that, 4 pages? Oh, and your portfolio, of course. So yeah, services, portfolio, about, and a contact. It's really that simple. And I think that's even what my website still is now. You could have a blog if you want. I'm not going to get into all that. Like, you can decide if you want to do that or not. Again, personally, just like how I don't want to spend a lot of time in the sales process, I just don't want to create a lot of content for my own business, which I know is ironic because I'm doing this and all that, but this isn't really for my writing business. This is just to share creativity, to hopefully, connect with other creatives. So that was step 3, have a website. Step 4 is getting a client. So this is, of course, a tough one. It's hard to get your first client. But again, I'll just kind of share from my experience what I did, and hopefully that helps you get a client too. At first, like I said, I was applying for like freelance gigs on a lot of the job boards. Some of them I know aren't around anymore, like ProBlogger. The ProBlogger job board was where I got a lot of my first jobs, and I think that closed down last year. Some that I do know have good gigs are We Work Remotely, and I'll put these like in the description. Working Nomads, We Work Remotely, Angel List, which I think is called something else now. There's also a newsletter by, her name's Sonia, I forget her last name, I'm sorry, but she runs a newsletter where she sends out so many opportunities, like paid writing opportunities. I think it's weekly. I do get it, and it's a really good newsletter. I think it's like $5 a month or something, but so good. It's both like client work, but also like magazine, editorial, journalism things. Like, it's really cool. So I would recommend her newsletter for that for sure. And then of course, self-plug, my newsletter at selfmadecreatives.com. I send out every issue like a collection of opportunities, but the ones that I think are really cool or just interesting or for weird companies in both writing, design, and other categories. So you can sign up for that. It's free, so why not? The ways to get kind of your first client. Like I mentioned, there are a couple of job boards still out there where you can browse, like you're browsing any job listing, see what they're looking for, apply, and hopefully get that. I will say that those tend to pay a lot lower than just working directly with a company as a freelancer. And by that I mean like pitching them yourselves, like, hey company, I'm a writer, I can do this many articles a month for you. Like, making your own agreement with someone like that is usually a lot more profitable. To work with companies like that, you do need to have that solid portfolio of work, which comes back to the same thing of getting the job, you need the experience. And then there's some people who say that, for your first couple of jobs, you should be or could be working for free or really, really low pay. Like, I'm talking the ones that want to pay you like $20 for 1,000 words or something like that. There's tons of companies like that out there who I think that's just really taking advantage of people.
You can love a boss like you do a father.
A lot of companies that are paying $20 for 1,000 words, they're expecting someone who lives in a country where the currency conversion would, I guess, make that seem okay. But in my mind, that's not okay. It doesn't matter what country you live in. $20 for 1,000 words is not the going rate of the industry. And so no one should get paid that, I think. I know there's lots of writers who get paid tons more than what I get paid. There's obviously a large scale there, but not $20 for 1,000 words. That's ridiculous. So that's my opinion on that. The first jobs I had were for some pretty decent companies, like some recognizable names. I think my first ever article I was paid $200 US, which to Canadian at the time was 200, would have been 250. I thought that was banging. That's of course not what I charge now, but at the time I thought that was pretty decent. That's better than $20 for 1,000 words. I had to get more coffee. Okay, so we're almost done. The only other thing about finding clients is nowadays I don't apply for job board listings and things like that anymore. I identify a company I want to work with, and then I try and figure out how to contact them, that's a whole thing by itself. Then reach out and work with them. But most of the time now, my clients that I have right now have found me. they have found my work somewhere else, reached out to me, or I've appeared on, I get a lot through LinkedIn. LinkedIn is awesome. Once you really build up a lot of momentum and like start working and get out there, it does take years. It took me years, but these clients that I never even dreamed of working with literally found me and wanted to work with me. I've worked with a lot of my clients for 2 years now, like really high paying retainer clients every single month, regular work for 2 years. And they're amazing and I love them, and it's good. So all this stuff about getting clients, it takes time in the beginning, but it does pay off. This is one of the things about setting up your own business. It is tough. It is a lot of work, but it really does build momentum over time if you just stay with it. And I think that's the key to all of these steps too, is just being consistent, building on everything you're doing. Nothing has to be perfect at the beginning, but you do need to keep building on it and growing and learning and all those things. And okay, that's enough about clients. Next step, I didn't have it here in my notes, but I'm going to add it because it is important, is make a LinkedIn profile. So I've gotten so many clients, or at least leads and interest and all that, from LinkedIn, and also connected with so many other freelance writers, which is really helpful when you're a business of one and you work by yourself. It's lonely, so lonely. LinkedIn is a big one, and of course it's free. You don't have to have a premium subscription or anything like that. Just make a profile, throw up a good profile pic, write, your little headline like mine. I gotta say, I love it. It's I write SaaS for SaaS, as in SaaS software, because that's what I do. Just make a LinkedIn profile.
4chan, 8chan, fucking LinkedIn, whatever, we're there.
Okay, so step 6, I believe we're on right now. The next level. This again took me not until about 2021 when this started happening for me. So that was after 2 years of full-time freelancing and 5 years of part-time and then full-time freelancing, because I started in 2016, full-time 2019. 2021, shit started happening for me.
Hey nerds! Guess who's got 2 thumbs, speaks limited French, and hasn't cried once today?
I hope that it's faster for you. I hope you start landing like really awesome big clients sooner, but it just, for me, it took years, and so I'm just being honest about that. It took a long time. But that's when these kind of big companies I mentioned before that I work with now started coming to me, and people would find me, and I would get an email from like a very recognizable name in the software industry that I specialize in, and be like, are you interested in writing for us? And I would look at their email address to be like, oh my God, this is going to be like a Susie Boozy 170@gmail.com address, right? Like this is going to be some scam. This is not legit. That's what I thought. And so I'd go look at their email address and I'd Google them and make sure this is a legit person who works for the company, and like even though it was like a professional looking email with their signature and all that, I would still check it out because I was like, no way, this is a scam. To be honest, a couple of them are. I am working with literally clients that I would only put on my dream board or vision board. I don't really do that stuff, but if I did, the clients I work with now would have been on that. And I didn't believe at the time that I'd be able to work with clients like that. I really didn't. And now I do. And I am pulling in sometimes like 10K months. I will also say too, I don't even work full-time hours. I've got kids, they just started kindergarten this year. So this is actually the first couple months I've had 5 days a week to work, but still only like 5 hours a day when they're in school. I probably work like 25 on my content, and then of course I do this YouTube and all kinds of other, I have a print shop, started a photography business. Why? So I do work more than full time, but not on writing. If I'm making 10K a month working like 25 hours a week, I know that sounds scammy and like what a lot of people say online, but I do.
I'm kind of a big deal.
And there's no pitch after that. Like I don't have a course, I don't have anything to sell you. I'd like it if you signed up for my free newsletter, but I don't have anything to sell you. So that's just what I do. I work 25 hours a week and I make like 10K a month. Not always 10K, the low end like 5 or 6. I don't want to brag about that but I just want you to know that like it really is possible. And step 6, what I was getting around to, the next level of establishing your brand. So that is when things really started to change for me in 2021, when these big companies found me. By that point, I had gotten a little sick of writing the typical SEO, listicle, the basic content out there. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with writing that. I just personally was just getting bored with it. And again, I had to work a lot at night because my kids were young at the time and not in school. I think when you are that tired and you're writing something for a business, you need to really enjoy it. You need to enjoy it because otherwise it just wasn't going to get done. So I really I changed a lot of my branding at that point, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to write more like me. And that's kind of what I said earlier about writing how I talk. I've always done that, but I just really wanted to put more of my own personality into it and just write, like honestly, I just want to write jokes about software. Oh, my dog is stretching. I have to say big stretch. Big stretch. There we go. Come here. Come on. Come do it. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna do the rest of this video, okay? Branding. I just started putting a bit more of my personality into my pieces. I redid my website to just be a bit more sassy sass content, the weirdo, nerdy, goofy way that I am.
Do you believe in the existence of extraterrestrials?
To my surprise, it really worked, and it just really blew my mind that, okay, corny moment incoming. Being more myself made this possible for me. From a branding perspective, I was really just aligning more with their content, and rather their content aligns more with my personality, I guess you could say. My personal thought on rates is that if it's not a high enough rate that makes you feel like you literally need to shit yourself, then it's not high enough. Sometimes I will let a quote sit for a day or two before I send it out because I want to make sure I'm not underselling myself, because I tend to do that, especially in the beginning. Now, not so much, but in the beginning, I'd be like, oh, should I charge like $325 instead of $300? Ooh, could I get away with that? That kind of like second guessing and all that. No, just go for it. If there are some situations where you might want to work for a little bit less because you want to work for a certain company, or you want like the big name recognition for your portfolio, having a couple of those early on can help. And obviously, like, you do you have your own priorities, you run your business your way, totally fine. But in my opinion, try and increase it every couple clients that you quote at least, and make it a high number. Make it a number that scares you, because that means it's probably not too low. In the past, for me, it actually sometimes still has been. I remember with a client I still work with today, I quoted them. It was the only time in my life this has ever happened. They came back to my quote to counter offer. They said that my quote was too low and they wanted to pay me more. Yes, these people exist. And if a client says that to you, it's okay to kiss them. You can just give them a big old smooch. I didn't, to clarify, I didn't. This was over email, but I would have if we were in person. I would have smooched them. So yeah, those are my tips for becoming a freelance writer. I hope they were helpful for you. I hope that it kind of just provides a bit of an overview, a roadmap, if you will, about the steps that I think are necessary. Be able to write, make some samples or get some samples, have a website, get LinkedIn. Like, LinkedIn is the shit for writers. Get clients, right? So when you're starting out, maybe some of those job boards and applying that way, or you can just go pitch companies directly. You just need to persevere. And then the last part, working on your branding and figuring out, what kind of content do you actually like writing? What kind of clients do you like writing for? Some people say you have to pick a niche and all that kind of stuff. I don't necessarily think that's true in some cases. I think it definitely helps, and it's definitely helped me to pick a niche, to specialize and to be kind of known for that. If you do pick one, make it something you enjoy, because like I said, this whole process, it does take years, and you're not going to stick with it if it's such a, like, it's not that it has to be easy. Like, my job is still not easy, but it's enjoyable because I've made it enjoyable, and I have made it fit my personality and the things that I like, the things I like learning about and like writing about. There are hard moments and times where, deadlines, you just got to push through, you got to work and you don't want to, but it's still enjoyable. But if you're writing about something that just really isn't, like, there's nothing to like about it, you're not going to stick with it for the years that are required to actually reach the level of success that you most likely want. And I think that's just one of those hard truths about any kind of freelancing or really creative work. It doesn't happen overnight. For most people, maybe you're special. Find ways to make it enjoyable and to make it unique to you, and you will break through. You will persevere. Like, I am still floored to this day that I am as successful as I am, and I would view, my current, maybe some people think 10K a month isn't really hot shit anymore in this economy. And I will say, living in Vancouver, BC, it does not go very far. Like, I'm not rich by any means. For me, as someone who barely graduated high school, didn't go to university, grew up in poverty, so for me to be as successful as I am with all those things, my light just went out. That's dim. But for me to be this successful, I'm surprised. I'm still surprised to this day, but I know that if I can do it, you can too. Like, literally, I know that also sounds cheesy, but it's so true. You can. So again, I hope that roadmap helped. Hope those steps helped. If you want me to dive deeper with examples and everything about how I did any of those steps, from like making my fake samples to making a website to how I pitched clients, the emails I wrote, templates, all that. If you want me to dive into any of those things in detail, just leave a comment and I'll make a separate video on it. Hope that was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. And yeah, my coffee's almost gone. It's cold. I need some real food, so I'm gonna go do that. Have a great day.